I'm Alex, and in this video, I'm going to expose the most arrogant climb ever. A woman who invented her own route, convinced her engineering mind could outsmart decades of Everest. But when she finally understood the catastrophic mistake she made thousands of feet up, it was already too late. It was May 14th, 2016. The GoPro powers on in darkness. The camera captures the interior of a high-altitude tent. The close nylon walls slick with condensation. A headlamp burning low, a compact stove running. The footage is steady. A pair of gloved hands moves through the frame, checking and rechecking an oxygen regulator with the kind of deliberate economy that does not belong to nervousness. It belongs to practice. The flow rate reads 2 liters per minute. 4 bottles are stacked near the door. The climber in the tent is Dara Solvik, 34, a structural engineer from Bozeman, Montana. She holds Norwegian-American citizenship, has no corporate sponsorship, and is not known to the general public. In small mountaineering circles, she has a specific reputation: 6 8,000-meter peaks summited, with a documented emphasis on technical solo routes in Patagonia and the Karakoram. She carries a laminated route card on every climb. Her emergency contact is her older sister, Renata, a pediatric nurse in Portland. The radio crackles from base camp. Kazi Dorje, 52, a retired Sherpa guide who manages Dara's supply logistics, weather relay, and communications from the 17,600-foot base camp elevation, confirms the weather window. 6 hours of stable conditions. A system is moving in from the west. Dara acknowledges, powers off the radio, and unzips the tent. Now listen, I'm no expert, but 6 hours sounds generous at sea level. How quickly does time disappear at nearly 5 miles above it? Kazi Dorje is not a high-altitude porter. He does not climb above Camp 1, at roughly 20,000 feet. His role is logistical and communicative, managing the expedition's supply chain, relaying contracted meteorological forecasts, and maintaining scheduled radio contact. At any moment during the ascent, he is the only person who knows Dara's precise position. From her apartment in Portland, Renata Dara monitors the base camp radio traffic through satellite relay. She can hear the transmissions between Kazi and Dara, but she cannot intervene. She is a witness. Her planned route cuts diagonally across the southwest face, between the South Col Road and the unclimbed southwest pillar, through a couloir system she identified via satellite imagery, 2 glaciological surveys, and French aerial photographs. No previous attempt was on record. Based on what I've read, in late 2015, she presented the plan to 2 experienced Everest climbers at a mountaineering symposium in Denver. Both described the couloir system as a serac trap, terrain dominated by unstable hanging ice, and warned that the upper section could not be reliably read from below. She documented their objections in her planning journal, and she just continued. The audio on the early footage captures 2 additional pieces of context as Dara begins her traverse. The first is a reminder from Kazi, delivered on radio before she unzips the tent, that her chosen route places her outside any assisted rescue corridor. No fixed lines, no Sherpa presence, no coordination with any team operating on the mountain that day. She acknowledges. The second is a reference to a satellite phone call she received 2 nights earlier from Renata in Portland. The call is logged. Renata told her that approximately 200 bodies remain on Everest's slopes and asked her directly whether she was prepared to become the 201st. The call record shows the conversation lasted 11 minutes, and if the risk was stated that clearly, why didn't it change her decision? The GoPro captures the character of the lower terrain in reliable detail. A steep snowfield, hard-packed over ice, pitched at approximately 45 degrees. Dara moves across it in crampons, front-pointing with precision, her ice axe working in a steady rhythm. The technique is not discussed or narrated. It is simply visible, and it is clean. The couloir entrance appears on camera as a narrow channel cut between 2 rock buttresses. At the base of the channel, the floor is choked with debris from a serac collapse. Blocks of ice and snow deposited at irregular angles, the residue of a hanging glacier that failed at some previous point and came down through the exact passage she now needs to cross. She stops. She photographs the debris field with a handheld camera clipped to her harness. Her voice memo, recorded and transmitted via satellite relay to Kazi at base camp, describes the deposit as old, possibly 2 seasons, and characterizes the channel above as visually clean. The assessment comes in the language she uses habitually when evaluating structural conditions. The voice memos throughout the lower portion of the climb reference load-bearing angles, fracture line geometry, and ice stratification layers. These are the analytical frameworks of a structural engineer reviewing a building site, translated into the context of a mountain wall. The terminology is precise and the observations are systematic. Her professional background in evaluating the stability of physical structures is evident in every note. She crosses the debris field in 11 minutes without incident and clears the couloir entrance. The route above her opens into the channel. She radios KZ at 6:40 in the morning. He reads her an updated weather report. The window remains at 6 hours. She reports good progress and continues climbing. At this point, everything still appears to be working. But how long can luck last in a place like this? The voice memos logged throughout the lower climb, ice stratification, debris age, surface angles, weather, constitute the only technical record ever made from inside the couloir at this altitude. And when I looked further into the story, I found that glaciologists who later reviewed them noted that the observational quality was high, and that several conditions she described in neutral terms, refreezing melt layers, inconsistent ice stratification, hollowed Sirac bases, were, in retrospect, indicators of instability she registered but did not weight accordingly. The footage changes character at 27,200 feet. The change is not dramatic. Nothing falls, nothing shifts. The change is in what the camera now shows on the walls of the couloir as it narrows. Seracs, glacier ice blocks the size of buildings, collapse without warning, no sound, no visible precursor. Standard protocol on the South Col route is to clear Serac zones before sunrise hits the face. The footage from Dara's camera at this section of the climb shows seracs on both walls of the narrowing couloir. Some are visibly fractured. The camera captures split surfaces, open fracture lines, and compression ice that holds its position not through structural integrity, but through temperature. The sun is already on the wall. The GoPro records the light changing as she climbs. She stops twice to look upward, scanning the walls. She does not speak during either pause. Then she begins moving faster. The footage from this section is visibly more urgent. Shorter steps, heavier impact, the camera shaking with her pace. Her breathing is audible, and it is no longer controlled in the way it was at lower elevations. At 27,500 feet, burning 2 liters of oxygen per minute, the math of supply versus demand is tightening. She does not stop to adjust the flow rate, and when oxygen, time, and structural stability all start running out at the same moment, which one fails first? She clears the Serac band at 10:20 in the morning. The footage shows her stopping on a small ice shelf on the far side. She bends forward, hands on knees. 6 seconds pass. Then she straightens and looks up. It's the minute details like these that makes me feel sorry for Dara. Like the magnitude of the goal she's trying to reach is slowly chipping away at her confidence during the climb. The elapsed time from Camp 2 to the top of the Serac band is approximately 4 hours and 20 minutes. Her original plan projected 3 hours and 40 minutes for the same section. The difference of roughly 40 minutes is not catastrophic in isolation. At this altitude, with a fixed oxygen supply calculated against a fixed timeline, 40 minutes is a number that compounds forward through every subsequent decision. What the camera captures above her is the upper couloir. The satellite imagery and glaciological surveys she studied did not resolve the angle of this section accurately. The ice wall ahead is near vertical, closer to 80 degrees than the 60 to 65 degree pitch her planning assumed. It is not what she built the route around. She does not radio this observation to Kazi. When I looked it up, an 80-degree ice wall at 27,800 feet is not a hike. It is technical alpine climbing under conditions that remove most of the margin that technical alpine climbing depends on. There are no fixed ropes on this section of the face. There is no second climber to provide a belay from above or below. Dara is alone on terrain that offers no redundancy. A single crampon point pulling loose from the ice surface, a single axe placement that fails to hold, and the next contact with anything solid is 1,400 feet below. If one mistake here ends the climb instantly, why does she decide the summit is still worth the risk? She climbs in silence. The GoPro footage from this section is remarkable, not for anything that goes wrong, but for what it shows about what right looks like at this altitude under these conditions. Deliberate placements, 3 points of contact at all times, no wasted motion, no hesitation between moves. She places 2 ice screws at intervals and runs a short section of rope through them as self-belay anchors, protection that would arrest a short fall but not a long one. The footage captures her hands during the screw placements. They are shaking. The shake is not severe, but it is present in every frame. At 28,100 feet, Dara reaches a narrow ledge, approximately 14 inches of horizontal surface, and stops. She contacts Casey by radio. Her oxygen consumption has exceeded her projections. 2 of her 4 bottles are reading roughly 60% remaining. She tells Kazi she is reducing her flow rate from 2 liters per minute to 1.5. He does not argue. Personally, this part really frustrates me. He asks if she is considering turnaround. She tells him she is close to the traverse, the section of the route she has studied longest, the piece the entire line depends on. He reads her the updated weather report. The western system has accelerated. The window is now 4 hours, not 6. He really should have insisted that she cancel the climb. But without further contest, she just acknowledges and resumes climbing. The camera, as she moves away from the ledge, captures the ledge from above. It is smaller than it appeared from the footage recorded while she was standing on it. She reaches the top of the ice wall and moves on to the traverse. The plan, developed over months from satellite imagery, aerial photographs, and glaciological survey data, called for a 600-foot horizontal crossing on a snow bench. The bench, according to her research, would connect to the South Summit Ridge at the top and provide a stable platform for the crossing. She has spent more time studying this section than any other part of the route. The GoPro records what she finds instead. The snow bench exists. The geometry matches the imagery, but the bench is not structurally attached to the face beneath it. It is a cornice, a wind-loaded accumulation of snow that is built outward from the edge of the ridge over time, projecting over open air with nothing beneath it. Cornices are a common feature of high-altitude ridge terrain. They are also among the more reliable ways to die in the mountains because they extend beyond the solid edge of the face and can collapse without warning when weight is applied. Walking across a cornice is, structurally, walking across a ceiling that has no floor. I don't know if it's just me, but if the only path forward is literally hanging over empty air, I would have been done. She stops at the edge of the cornice. The camera faces down for a moment, then back along the intended line of traverse. She taps the surface twice with her ice axe, testing it. The sound the axe makes on the snow is audible in the recording. It is hollow. The traverse and the cornice discovery represent the pivot point of the climb. Everything before it is a record of a technically capable climber executing a difficult, unverified route with a high degree of competence and a managed set of compounding risks. Everything after it is a record of what happens when the planned descent route no longer exists and the planned ascent route is structurally impassable. The cornice does not represent a failure of execution. She did not fall. She made no mistake on the wall. The cornice represents the outer boundary of what satellite imagery and ground-level survey data from the 1980s and early 2000s could have reliably shown. The bench was there. The imagery was accurate. The imagery did not show what was beneath the surface, and nothing in her pre-expedition research could have established that without standing precisely where she was standing. She does not cross. Instead, she angles upward from the cornice edge, looking for a way to gain the South Summit Ridge from below, a line that bypasses the cornice entirely by climbing the mixed rock and ice terrain above it. She locates a viable section and begins climbing. It is 70-degree mixed ground. It adds 300 feet of unplanned vertical. Her oxygen supply is now at 40% on the second bottle. She has not opened bottles 3 or 4. At 28,600 feet, she pulls onto a small rock band and stops. The GoPro captures what is visible from this position, the South Summit, approximately 100 vertical feet above. She is close to the summit by any measure. The distance remaining is less than the distance she has already covered today. Then she looks down, and the moment she does, she realizes something far more serious than the climb itself. There's so much hints and details that frames this expedition as such a bad idea, and I think it's sad that she seems to realize the severity of the situation when she's already this deep. The couloir she ascended is no longer identifiable as a descent route. In the hours since she passed through, solar heating and shifting temperatures have altered the snow surface across the upper section of the ice wall. The face below the rock band is sheeted in refrozen melt, glassy, near vertical, and without any of the texture that allowed upward progress. Her Her ice screw anchors are 200 feet below. On the underside of the wall, she can no longer safely down climb. Below the ice wall, the serac band she passed through in the morning has changed. One of the seracs she moved beneath has shifted since she crossed under it. A horizontal crack, 2 feet wide, now runs the full width of the channel. The crack was not visible this morning. The route does not go down. She remains on the rock band without moving for 4 minutes. The GoPro faces downward for the entire duration. Then she keys the radio. Kazi Dorje receives the call at base camp at 1:14 in the afternoon. The transmission is clear. Both voices are steady throughout the exchange. The steadiness of both voices is what makes the recording difficult to listen to. Dara describes the cornice. She describes the ice conditions on the wall below. She describes the serac crack. She does so in the same systematic, technical language she used in the lower couloir voice memos. Organized observations, accurate measurements where she can provide them. Clear distinctions between what she has confirmed and what she is estimating. Kazi asks whether she can downclimb the mixed rock and ice section she used to reach the rock band. She tells him it is possible, but that the section leads back to the top of the ice wall, which she cannot descend safely without a top anchor that does not exist at her position. He asks about her oxygen. She tells him. He asks about the weather. She tells him the cloud system from the west is visible and moving toward her at a rate she estimates will put it at her position in approximately 90 minutes. If the weather arrives before she finds a way down, what happens to a climber trapped at 28,000 feet? What she says next made me really feel sorry for her. She tells Kazi that she believes she has climbed into a position she cannot get out of. Kazi does not respond for 3 seconds. In a statement later provided to the Nepalese Ministry of Tourism, Kazi described his understanding of the situation at this moment. He had been on Everest 7 times across his career as a guide. He recognized the language and the cadence of a climber who has completed a final assessment of their position. The language in that situation, he said, is always calm and always precise. She gives Kazi her sister's phone number from memory and asks him to make contact. The number is already in the relay system. The exchange, from first contact to the end of the recorded portion, runs approximately 7 minutes. In those 7 minutes, Dara provides a complete and accurate account of her tactical position, her remaining supplies, the route conditions above and below, and her assessment of the available options. She does not express doubt about the accuracy of her observations. She does not revise her estimates under questioning. She does not ask Kazi what he thinks she should do. She does not sit down. The footage from the rock band shows her moving continuously, not climbing, but searching. She works her way methodically along the ledge system, testing each section, probing surfaces with her axe, looking at angles. She identifies a narrow ice gully to the southeast that runs at a direction that could, if the ice is solid, allow a descending traverse onto terrain outside her current position. She swings the axe into the surface of the gully to test it. The pick drives through the outer crust and drops into hollow space beneath. She pulls it back. She opens bottle 3. If she is already conserving oxygen, what does opening another bottle say about how long she expects to remain here? The sky in the GoPro footage is changing. The flat, featureless blue of the morning has been replaced by a texture building from the west. Thin cloud layers stacking and thickening at the horizon, the leading edge visible at roughly her altitude. At 1:47 in the afternoon, Kazi patches Renata Solvik through on the satellite relay from Portland. The connection quality is poor. The conversation is brief. Dara tells her sister that she has encountered problems on the route. Renata asks what kind of problems. Dara provides a short explanation. There is a pause in the recording. Renata asks what Dara is going to do. Dara tells her to wait. Renata Dara provided a statement to the Norwegian Alpine Club's accident investigators the following year. She described staying on the open line for approximately 40 minutes after the exchange, before the signal degraded and the connection dropped. During that time, she reported hearing wind through the audio. The last point at which she heard her sister's voice, she said, was approximately 2:20 in the afternoon. At 2:08 in the afternoon, with the footage still recording, Dara makes a decision and begins implementing it. She starts down climbing the 70-degree mixed section she used to reach the rock band. She faces outward, using her axes in compression against ice patches between crumbling rock, descending without a top rope in conditions that do not permit it. Over the next 12 minutes, she descends approximately 40 feet. The footage from this sequence is difficult for me to watch. Not because of any fall, no fall occurs. The difficulty is in the quality of each placement. the margin visible in every move, the distance between what each placement is being asked to hold and what it can reliably hold. She reaches the top of the ice wall at 40 feet below the rock band. She looks at the angle. She cannot continue the descent safely without a belay from below that is not available. She climbs back up, 12 minutes up. Her breathing rate on the audio, recorded at 28,300 feet on 1.5 liters of oxygen per minute, is audible and elevated well beyond the pace of the lower mountain. Bottle 3 is being consumed faster than any bottle before it. The Western system reaches her position at approximately 2:50 in the afternoon. The GoPro footage documents the speed of the transition. Full visibility, the entire southwest face visible below, the south summit ridge clear above, to near zero in under 6 minutes. The change is not gradual. Wind arrives first, then snow horizontal in the frame, then the microphone clips out entirely from the noise level. The camera lens clouds with driven ice crystals. The temperature, already well below 0 Fahrenheit at this altitude before the storm, drops sharply with the wind chill added. The nearest other climbers on Everest at this moment are operating on the South Col route, approximately 1.2 miles away, horizontally and at a lower elevation. They are themselves descending in deteriorating conditions. No member of any team on the mountain that day is aware that a climber is on the southwest face at 28,600 feet. There is no rescue corridor. There is no coordination point. There is no position from which another climber could reach her location in time, on an unmarked route, in these conditions. The footage shows her finding the largest rock on the band, 3 feet of vertical profile, roughly, and pulling herself in behind it. She tightens her down suit collar. She adjusts her oxygen mask. The rock is not enough to block the wind. It is what is available. Radio contact with Kazi degrades at 3:10 in the afternoon. His last clearly recorded transmission tells her what she has already understood. No helicopter rescue is possible above 23,000 feet in these conditions. No climbing team is positioned to reach her location. He tells her to find the best shelter available and conserve oxygen. She acknowledges. The transmission cuts out and does not reconnect. The satellite relay logs no further two-way communication after 3:14 p.m. Renata Dara, monitoring from Portland, loses the feed entirely within the same window. If the final radio call has already happened, what remains for a climber alone at this altitude? The camera continues recording for approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes, past the 3:10 radio contact, before the footage ends. In that window, the footage provides the only remaining record of Dara's condition and position. The following sequence is, in my opinion, the most harrowing part of this story. At 3:30 in the afternoon, she is behind the rock. She is conscious. Small movements are visible. Adjustments to her body position, incremental shifts as she works to stay out of the direct wind. She is on oxygen. At 4:15 in the afternoon, the camera captures her opening bottle 4. It is her last. She turns the flow regulator down to 1 liter per minute, maximum conservation. At 4:40 in the afternoon, she shifts her position. The wind is still heavy in the audio. Visibility in the frame is less than 15 feet. She moves her legs, then her torso, repositioning against the rock. At 5:02 in the afternoon, she stands. The reason is not determinable from the footage. She moves forward, away from the rock and toward the edge of the rock band. She passes the edge of the camera's frame and does not reappear. The GoPro, left on the rock surface or dropped, continues recording. The frame shows wind and ice in varying density. The light fades at the rate of a high-altitude evening in mid-May. The battery dies at 5:24 in the afternoon. The footage ends. In Dara's last moments, I keep thinking what was going through her mind. Kazi Dorje filed a missing persons report with the Nepalese Ministry of Tourism on the evening of May 14, 2016. A search assessment conducted on May 16th deployed 2 contracted Sherpa climbers to the couloir entrance at approximately 27,000 feet. They did not proceed further. The lower serac had partially collapsed in the intervening period, and the entry to the couloir system was no longer passable. A second limited search effort in late May, conducted during a brief stable weather window, put a 2-person contracted team onto the southwest face via an approach line above the collapsed serac. They did not locate Solvik's body. On the rock band at 28,600 feet, they recovered the GoPro camera, still clipped to the rock where the final footage shows it coming to rest. That footage was reviewed by a Kathmandu-based mountaineering accident board and 2 glaciologists at Renata's request. No further recovery operation was attempted. Renata held a memorial service for her sister in Portland that October, and I can only imagine how hard it is to mourn someone without a casket.